A professor sits with a farmer on a train. Bored, the professor says to the farmer, "I ask you a question. If you can't answer it, you give me $5. Then you ask me a question. If I can't answer it, I give you $500. What do you think?" The farmer nods. The professor asks the farmer, "What is the distance between the Earth and the Moon?" The farmer silently takes out $5 and gives it to the professor. The farmer asks the professor, "What animal has 3 legs when ascending a mountain and 4 legs when descending a mountain?" The professor thinks hardly but couldn't find an answer, so he reluctantly pulls out $500 for the farmer. The farmer takes the $500 and prepares to nap. The professor asks, "What animal is it?" The farmer takes out $5 and gives it to the professor. Then he falls asleep. An elderly couple struggling with memory signs up for a course that teaches word association to help recall names. They love it and tell everyone about it. A few months later, their neighbor sees the husband gardening. "Hey, Ed," he asks, "what was the name of that memory course instructor you raved about?" Ed pauses, scratches his head. What's that flower called? The one with a lovely smell and sharp thorns?" "You mean a rose?" "That's it!" Ed turns toward the house and yells, "Hey, Rose!" What was the name of that memory guy? A cat passed away and went to heaven. At the pearly gates, God greeted the feline. "You've been a faithful little cat all these years. Whatever you'd like is yours." The cat thought for a moment. "Well, I spent my life on a farm, always curled up on cold, hard wooden floors. I'd love a soft, fluffy pillow." "Consider it done," said God. Instantly, the cat had the fluffiest pillow imaginable. A few days later, a dozen mice arrived at the gates after a tragic accident. God welcomed them with the same offer. The mice said, "We've spent our whole lives running, from cats, dogs, even broom-wielding humans. Could we please have tiny roller skates so we'll never have to run again?" "Of course," God replied, and in a blink, the mice were gliding around on perfect little skates. A week later, God checked in on the cat. She was curled up, purring contentedly on her pillow. "How's everything going?" asked God. "Are you happy here?" The cat stretched, smiled, and said, "Oh yes, this is paradise. My pillow is perfect, and those little meals on wheels you keep sending me are absolutely delicious." On a crowded train, traveling somewhere in Europe. A U.S. Marine walked the entire length of the train looking for a seat before realizing that the only seat available was currently occupied by a well-dressed, middle-aged French woman's poodle. The weary Marine asked, "Ma'am, may I have that seat?" The French woman just sniffed and said to no one in particular, "Americans are so rude. My little Fifi is using that seat." The Marine walked the entire length of the train again and discovered that the only seat available was in fact the one currently being occupied by the poodle. Trudging tiredly back, the Marine arrived once more before the French woman and said, "Please, ma'am, may I sit down?" "I'm very tired," she snorted. "Not only are you Americans rude, you are also arrogant. Why should I care if you are tired?" This time the Marine didn't say a word, but simply picked up the little dog, tossed it out the train window, then sat down. The woman shrieked, "Someone defend my honor! This American needs to be put in his place." An English gentleman sitting nearby spoke up. "Sir, you Americans seem to have a penchant for doing the wrong thing. You hold your fork in the wrong hand, and you drive your cars on the wrong side of the road. And now, sir, you seem to have thrown the wrong bitch out the window." The couple was 85 years old and had been married for 60 years. Though not young, they were both in very good health, largely due to the wife's insistence on healthy foods and exercise for the last decade. One day their good health didn't help when they went on a rare vacation and their plane crashed, sending them off to heaven. They reached the pearly gates, and St. Peter escorted them inside. He took them to a beautiful mansion, furnished in gold and fine silks, with a fully stocked kitchen and a waterfall in the master bath. They gasped in astonishment when he said, "Welcome to heaven. This will be your home now." The old man asked Peter how much all this was going to cost. "Why, nothing," Peter replied. "Remember, this is your reward in heaven." The old man looked out the window, and right there he saw a championship golf course, finer and more beautiful than any ever built on earth. "What are the greens fees?" grumbled the old man. "This is heaven," St. Peter replied. "You can play for free every day." Next, they went to the clubhouse and saw the lavish buffet lunch with every imaginable cuisine laid out before them, from seafood to steaks to exotic desserts, free-flowing beverages. "Don't even ask," said St. Peter to the man. "This is heaven. It is all free for you to enjoy." The old man looked around and glanced nervously at his wife. "Well, where are the low-fat and low-cholesterol foods and the decaffeinated tea?" he asked. "That's the best part," St. Peter replied. "You can eat and drink as much as you like of whatever you like, and you will never get fat or sick. This is heaven." The old man pushed. "No gym to work out at?" "Not unless you want to," was the answer. "No testing my sugar or blood pressure or—" "Never again. All you do here is enjoy yourself." The old man glared at his wife and said, "You and your damn bran muffins. We could have been here 10 years ago." A man walked into a bar and ordered a drink for himself and the empty seat next to him. The bartender, perplexed as to why the man would order a drink for an empty chair, made 2 drinks for the man and the empty chair. This seemed to happen every time the man entered the bar. He would order a drink for himself and an empty chair next to him. Finally, curiosity overtook the barman, and the barman asked the customer, "Every time I see you come in here, you always order a drink for the empty chair next to you. Why do you do that?" The man replied, "Well, you see, I am a physicist, and quantum physics states that it is possible for the matter above the chair to spontaneously form into a beautiful woman, whom I hope to give this drink to and go out on a date." The bartender asks, "Well, plenty of women come to drink here every night. Why don't you buy one of them a drink? Maybe one of them will go out on a date with you." To which the man replies, "Yeah, but what are the chances of that happening?" 3 women, 2 younger and 1 senior citizen, were sitting in a sauna only covered by a towel. Suddenly there was a beeping sound. The young woman pressed her forearm and the beep stopped. The others looked at her questioningly. "That was my pager," she said. "I have a microchip under the skin of my arm." A few minutes later, a phone rang. The second young woman lifted her palm to her ear. When she finished, she explained, "That was my mobile phone. I have a microchip in my hand." The older woman felt very low tech. Not to be outdone, she decided she had to do something just as impressive. She stepped out of the sauna and went to the bathroom. She returned with a piece of toilet paper hanging from her rear end. The others raised their eyebrows and stared at her. The older woman finally said, "Well, will you look at that? I'm getting a fax." 100 years old. The doctor asked the man, "Do you smoke or drink?" "No," he replied. "I've never done either." "Do you gamble, drive fast cars, or fool around with women?" inquired the doctor. "No, I've never done any of those things either." "Well then," said the doctor, "what do you want to live to be 100 for?" 2 couples decided to host a friendly dinner party one evening. During the evening, Jim accidentally dropped his napkin under the table. When he bent down to pick it up, he couldn't help but notice that Bob's wife, Sue, wasn't wearing any underwear under her dress. The shocking discovery left Jim flustered, and in his haste to sit back up, he bumped his head on the table, emerging red-faced and awkward. Later, while Jim was helping himself to drinks in the kitchen, Sue walked in and, with a sly smile, asked, "Did you like what you saw under the table?" Caught off guard, Jim hesitated but finally admitted, "Well, yes, I did." Sue leaned closer and whispered, "If you want it, it'll cost you $500. Jim was stunned but intrigued. After a brief internal debate, he agreed to her proposition. Sue suggested he come by her house Friday afternoon since Bob would be at work. When Friday rolled around, Jim arrived at Sue's house at 2 p.m. sharp. After handing her the agreed $500, they went to the bedroom and the deal was done. Jim quickly dressed, thanked Sue, and left. That evening, when Bob came home, he casually asked Sue, "Did Jim stop by the house today?" Sue's heart skipped a beat, but she replied, "Why, yes, he did drop by for a little while." Bob nodded and asked, "Did he give you $500? Sue, trying to stay composed, answered, "Well, yes, he did." Bob grinned and said, "Perfect. He stopped by the office this morning and borrowed $500 from me. He promised he'd drop it off at the house today. Glad he kept his word. Now that is what you call playing the long game." A wife goes on a trip for work. When she returns, she finds a pair of panties in her dresser that do not belong to her. Furious, she questions her husband. The husband says, "I have no idea where they came from. I don't do the laundry." So the wife goes to the maid and questions her. Indignant, the maid replies, "Madam, how should I know?" "These panties don't belong to me. I don't even wear panties. Just ask your husband." In a train compartment, there are 3 men and a ravishing young girl. The young girl proposes, "If each of you will give me $1, I will show you my legs." The men, charmed by this young girl, all pull a buck out of their wallet. And then the girl pulls us her dress a bit to show her legs. Then she says, "If each of you gentlemen will give me $10, I'll show you my thighs." And men being what they are, they all pull out a $10 bill. The girl pulls up her dress all the way to her legs in full. Conversation continues, and the men, a bit excited, have all taken off their coats. Then the young girl says, "If you will give me $100, I will show you where I was operated on for appendicitis." All 3 fork over the money. The girl then turned to the window and points outside at a building they're passing. "See there in the distance? That's the hospital where I had it done." At school, a classmate told little Johnny that most adults have at least one dark secret, and it is very easy to earn money from them by saying, "I know the whole truth." Little Johnny decides to go home and try it out. He goes home, and when he is greeted by his mother, he says, "I know the whole truth." His mom quickly gives him $20 and says, "Don't tell your dad." The boy happily waits for his father to come home from work and greets him with, "I know the whole truth." The father immediately gives him $40 and says, "Please don't tell the secret to your mother." Johnny is very happy to go to school the next day when he sees the mailman at his front door. The boy greets him by saying, "I know the whole truth." The mailman immediately drops the mail, opens his arms, and says, "So come give your real father a big hug." Johnny was having problems in English class, so his teacher decided to stop by little Johnny's house on her way home. She wanted to discuss his poor performance directly with his parents. When she rang the doorbell, Johnny answered. "Hi, Johnny. I'd like to talk to your mother or father," she said. "Sorry, but they ain't here." He replied. She said, "What is it with your grammar?" "Haven't got a clue," Johnny replied. "But Dad sure was mad that they had to go bail her out again." Patty finds a monkey by the side of the road, but he doesn't know what to do with it. When he gets home with the monkey, he asks his neighbor, "Mick, what should I do with this monkey?" "Take it to the zoo," answered Mick. "That's a good idea," Patty replies. "I'll do that tomorrow." The next day, Mick sees Patty come home again with the monkey. "You didn't take it to the zoo?" asks Mick. "Yeah, I did," says Patty. "And next week we're going to Disneyland." Johnny and Mary had been sweethearts since grade school. They grew up together, married, raised a family, and never left their little neighborhood. Now, 50 years later, they were still side by side, older, slower, but just as inseparable. To celebrate their golden anniversary, they took a sentimental stroll to their old school. Hand in hand, they found the worn desk where Johnny had once nervously carved, "I love you, Mary." The sight made them smile like teenagers again. On the way home, fate decided to add some excitement to their celebration. With a loud thud, a bag tumbled from the back of an armored truck and landed practically at their feet. Mary snatched it up before anyone else could notice. Back home, they spilled the contents onto the kitchen table, neat stacks of cash, $50,000 in total. Johnny's eyes widened. "Mary, we've got to give this back." Mary crossed her arms. "Oh, no, we don't." Finders, keepers. She shoved the money back into the bag and marched it straight to the attic. The next morning, 2 FBI agents were canvassing the neighborhood. When they knocked on Johnny and Mary's door, Mary put on her sweetest, innocent smile. "Good morning, folks," one agent said. "Did either of you happen to find a bag of money that fell out of an armored car yesterday?" "Absolutely not," Mary said smoothly. "She's lying," Johnny blurted. "She hid it in the attic." Mary snapped back. "Don't believe him. He's senile." The agents looked at each other. Something didn't add up, so they sat Johnny down. One leaned in. "Sir, why don't you tell us what happened from the very beginning?" Johnny nodded, took a deep breath, and said, "Well, when Mary and I were walking home from school yesterday..." The 2 agents froze, glanced at each other, and stood up immediately. One muttered to the other as they headed for the door, "Let's get out of here." Mary smirked. 50 years of marriage had taught her one thing. Sometimes being married to a senile old man was the best cover story she could ever ask for. I was having lunch with a female colleague when I saw my wife come in. "It's my wife!" "I have to hide," I whispered. "Don't be silly, your wife can't possibly object to you having lunch with someone you work with," she said. "She can if she thinks I died in 1995. Wife walks into the kitchen and finds her husband walking around with a fly swatter. Wife: "What are you doing?" Husband: "Hunting flies." Wife: "Oh? Caught any?" Husband: "Yep." 3 males, 2 females. Wife: "How on earth can you tell the difference?" Husband: "Easy. 3 were on a beer can, 2 were on the phone." The alarm system kept breaking down, so instead of repairing it, I decided to get a guard dog instead. I went to the pet store, and the shopkeeper showed me a lot of breeds to choose from. A Rottweiler, a German Shepherd, a Doberman, but there was this one tiny little pug that caught my eye. I laughed and told the shopkeeper, "What does this little fella do?" The shopkeeper told me that it was the most dangerous of them all. The pug knows karate. Amused, I told him to explain further. He brought a chair and set the dog free, then told the dog, "Karate the chair," and within seconds he turned the chair into dust. Then he got a fridge and said, "Karate the fridge," and again the dog turned it into dust. Being pretty impressed, I bought the dog. I was very happy to show my wife what I had just got. The security problem in our house will be resolved now. "Honey, I got the new security system," I said. She was disappointed to know it was just a dog. She said, "What the fuck? It's a freaking dog." I said, "But honey, this dog knows karate." My wife: "Karate my ass." A wife was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband's key in the door. "Stay where you are," she said, alarmed by the sound. "He's so drunk he won't even notice you're in bed with me." The husband lurched into bed, but a few minutes later, through a drunken haze, he saw 6 feet sticking out at the end of the bed. He turned to his wife. "Hey, there are 6 feet in this bed." "There should only be 4. What's going on?" "You're so drunk you miscounted," said the wife. "Get out of bed and try again. You can see better from over there." The husband climbed out of bed and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Damn, you're right. A submarine is following its course when the alarm goes off. Everyone starts panicking, except for James. He is known for being the funniest among the recruits, and he always lights up the mood, even in critical situations. "What is going on?" he asks. "We are about to crash, you imbecile. Go help Smith, quick. Want to hear a funny joke first?" "What? No! Just go! Move, move!" A bit sad, James calmly walks around until he reaches Smith. "Thank God you're here. I need your help." "What is going on?" James asks again. "There are multiple obstacles in front of us. Their upper parts are stronger, so the ideal scenario would be to carefully maneuver around them and maybe graze the bottom part of just a few of them since it is weaker. If we manage to sink quickly enough, we might make it." "Got it. Want to hear a joke first?" "No, now it's not the time, James." Not wanting to take no for an answer again, he tells the joke anyway, and they both start laughing hysterically, which makes it impossible to perform the delicate maneuver. All the other alarms go off. The officer rushes in and finds both James and Smith rolling on the floor in tears. "I hope you are happy now," he shouts. "Thanks to this joke, this sub will hit the top of all today." Two housewives who are friends meet. One says, "Yesterday my husband bought me 20 red roses. Guess I'll have to spread my legs for 2 weeks." "How so?" asks the other. "Don't you have a vase?" An efficiency expert concluded his lecture with a note of caution. "You don't want to try these techniques at home." "Why not?" asked somebody from the audience. "I watched my wife's routine at breakfast for years," the expert explained. "She would make lots of trips between the refrigerator, stove, table, and cabinets, often carrying a single item at a time. One day I told her, 'Hun, why don't you try carrying several things at once?'" "Did it save time?" the person in the audience asked. "Actually, yes," replied the expert. "It used to take her 20 minutes to make breakfast. Now I do it in 7.